When I'm not totally winning the Shawn Mendes meet and greet by walking up to him and saying, "What's up, Charlie Puth?" I like to answer questions that I get on YouTube. So let's have at it. Question, have you been recognized by a stranger yet for being on YouTube? Yes, but first I want to get to this user who last week I was doing a guitar control live feed, which I do pretty much every Wednesday night, which I'll be there tonight if you want to come check it out. But basically I go on Guitar Control's channel and they give me like a topic to kind of do something. And last week the topic was how to play in the style of William Ackerman. And I was like, yeah, sure, I could do that, not knowing who it was. So the day of, I look it up, and it's this guy. I don't know if you know who Bill Ackerman is, but he basically has a different tuning for every single one of his songs, and he writes in different tunings like all the time just because of it. So like, it's an incredibly hard thing to teach when you're just like kind of doing like a random tuning and trying to teach it. So I was like totally BSing my way through this live feed lesson. And then this joker comes up and he's busting my balls about it the entire time in a pretty cool way. So I was actually like in that moment seeing that like one of my subscribers had followed me from my channel to another channel and then like was busting my balls about posing to be a Will Ackerman fan live. In that moment, I kind of felt like I made it. So definitely thank you very much for all the people who followed me over to different channels. As far as being recognized in public, yes. And I will never forget the first time it happened because I was at like a Starbucks and I was just like, you know, by the way, I also don't count local people recognizing me from YouTube because, I don't know, it's got to be like a stranger from a different city. But the first time it happened, I was in a Starbucks and I was just kind of like doing something on my computer. And I saw somebody kind of like looking at me out of the corner of my eye. And I was like, huh, that's strange. And then all of a sudden I hear, "Are you Sean Daniel?" And I look up and I'm like, it's happening. And I was like so happy. And the guy said he was a big fan. He's a cool guy. But I was probably way more excited to see him than he was to see me. And it was definitely awesome. So definitely, if any of you ever see me in public, please hit me up because it's like such an ego trip. And again, it's happened a few times since then, and it's always a cool experience to kind of meet people who have just known me from YouTube. So definitely don't be afraid to hit me up if you ever see me. Seriously, only heard this song one other time previously. As good of a teacher as you are, I'm surprised you should listen to more of Gilmore's music. So this is in response to the revelation that I don't really listen to a lot of Pink Floyd. Not that I hate on Pink Floyd, I just don't really listen to them. And at this point, being this late in the game, I kind of lump listening to Pink Floyd into never wearing blue jeans and also never being to New York City. Like things that like everybody kind of like really agrees is like an awesome thing. The contrarian in me just wants to go totally the other way and never ever try it. So I have no plans to ever go to New York City. I have no plans to ever listen to Pink Floyd, and I have no plans to ever listen to Blue Jeans. And if I can get through my entire life without doing those three things, that's a life well lived. Do you even to know to effing explain, asshole? You know, this is a pretty good Salty Blues comment because, I mean, obviously it's got all the makings of a great one. You know, the poor grammar and punctuation, the profanity, but the way he doubled down, like, do you even know how to effing explain? And then after that fact, mentioning that I'm an asshole, as if like the first sentence wasn't enough to make me understand how upset he was. Like, in case you didn't read like the subtext, the subtle subtext that I'm unhappy with this lesson, I'm gonna call you an asshole after the fact. And not only that, but what was this video on that he was so upset about? How to learn how to play the Super Mario guitar theme, which is like, it's just such a beautiful, innocent, happy piece of music that, I don't know, it was hard for me to screw that up. Anyways, I appreciate the saltiness. Who are your favorite bass players? I feel like this has been asked before. I feel like maybe I answered this before, but I don't even really remember at this point. I really love Colin Greenwood from Radiohead. Chris from Muse is definitely an awesome rock and bass player. Paul Turner from Jamiroquai is definitely up there for sure. I used to always think it was Stuart Zender from earlier Jamiroquai, but then I started kind of like looking into it, and my favorite bass riffs actually ended up being from Paul Turner after the fact. So I guess I can say Stuart Zender / Paul Turner. Definitely, if you don't know Jamiroquai, check it out. Some of the nastiest bass stuff you'll ever see. And I guess I'll probably put in Pino Palladino to kind of round it out. I think he's just kind of like the perfect like bass player. Like if you had to like mold what a bass player is, I think Pino's just the man. He plays with John Mayer a lot, among other things. But definitely, I think bass is kind of like, tasteful bass is almost kind of like an underrated kind of thing. So those are kind of like a lot of guys that I try to like style my bass playing after. And yeah, great players. Hey Sean, I always enjoy your videos. I was interested by your comments about U2 and was wondering what you think about the Edge as a guitarist. Many people emphasize his reliance on effects and criticize him as being more famous, but much less technically skilled than guitarists like Steve Vai or Yngwie Malmsteen. I personally tend to think, though, that when evaluating a guitarist's pure technical skill is less important than the inherent quality of the music itself. I'd definitely be interested by your thoughts on this, either in terms of the Edge or more generally. Thanks. Yeah, so when evaluating guitarists, it's like, what is the criteria, really? And that's always kind of like, who's the best guitarist ever? Who's a terrible guitarist? There's so many things that you can evaluate that on. Like, are you talking about like technical skill and just like kind of like dexterity when you talk about guys like Steve Vai and Satriani and Petrucci, which is like, it's hard to like get better than them when it comes to like the speed, technical ability? Or do you really kind of like, as I do, I evaluate a guitarist more on kind of like their creativity and their writing and their arrangement and just kind of like how, their playing kind of like speaks to me. And that brings up the Edge, a guitarist who gets like an insane amount of hate in the guitar community, specifically the blues community, which I do kind of understand because, at the end of the day, it's really hard to evaluate a player like the Edge against someone who really is just kind of like, shredding and kind of like using like a really, encyclopedic knowledge of guitar. And he's not really doing himself any favors by calling himself the Edge. Like, it would be better if he just called himself Edge. Like, I hear Bono talk about him in interviews. He's like, so I was talking to the Edge. Like, they always have to say the in front of the Edge. You can't just call him Edge. I think it's a little, obviously pretty pretentious, so I think he brings a lot of it to himself. But on the other hand, it's like, are there 3 or 4 guitar players in the history of the instrument that have been more influential on like guitar than the Edge has been? I mean, he's really like a pioneer of like effects, and kind of like that sound was such his sound that has been like duplicated many times. So yeah, I love the Edge's playing. And, I think the cool thing about his guitar playing is it's something that like, I've never really tried to emulate, and that's why it's always kind of like fresh when I hear some of the older U2 stuff, because I was talking with Justin about this last week, that once you kind of like learn how to play like songs from a guitarist, it's almost like some of the magic is gone from that in a weird kind of way, like once you kind of like know how it works. But yeah, I think the Edge has a cool sound. Again, I think even he said in like interviews and stuff that like he doesn't rank himself among like the all-time greats, and he's just kind of like, to me, he seems kind of humble about it in the magnanimous U2 way, which is kind of like the ultimate paradox about that band. But yeah, so when it comes to evaluating guitarists, I try not to hate on people just because they use effects. I mean, that's kind of like what that music is all about. And what he does incredibly well. That being said, the insane guitar rig setup that he has set up like underground for those shows is just like totally out of control and maybe a little much. So again, I totally get it, but I'm with you. It's really not about the technical skill. It's more about the writing and kind of like the emotion of a certain guitar player, and that's how I evaluate who I think my favorite guitar players are and the best guitar players are. Hey Sean, thank you for the videos. What is better, Epiphone Les Pauls or PRS SE24s? Just your opinion. Thanks in advance. Good question. Both of them are really great guitars. Now, my personal opinion is I like the PRS ones a little bit better because I have found that they're more consistent from model to model. Any PRS SE I've ever picked up in a store or played has been pretty much the same. Just really great guitar. Awesome guitar, especially for the money. It's fantastic. The Epiphone Les Pauls, some of them are like amazing and they sound just as good as like the Gibsons, and they sound incredible, and it's like, I can't believe that this is only like, $300, $400, $500, whatever it ends up being. And then other Epiphone Les Pauls, of which there's like a million different models between them, I can't even keep them all straight, are just like absolutely just terrible, unplayable, Les Paul knockoffs. So I think the quality control between models, I would have to give the edge to PRS. So especially if you're thinking about getting one, that's the one that I would kind of go towards initially. But again, it's just, both great guitars. Just make sure you kind of get your hands on them and play them, and then find out which one that you like better. Hey Sean, big fan. Also, what do you think about the Strokes? So the Strokes are a band that I actually got into kind of late. I love those first 2 albums. I haven't really listened to a lot of the stuff post Room on Fire, but those first 2 albums were kind of game-changing. Again, at the time, I didn't really listen to them a lot. I always felt like in that era, I was more of like a Team Interpol guy, which is actually funny because I started reading this oral history by Lizzie Goodman, I think, which I'll link you to because it's actually a really interesting book. If you don't know what an oral history is, it's instead of like just actually like writing a book, just kind of like an author writing it. The author collects a bunch of interviews and transcripts from pertinent people and kind of like pieces stories together from just word of mouth stuff. And this whole book is actually about like the 2000 era bands from New York that were coming up and kind of like the rise to fame, which it's definitely about the Strokes, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, who were a band I really liked initially but have since like tailed off and I don't even know what they're doing, and Interpol, and to a lesser extent kind of like Vampire Weekend. And I really like reading well put together oral histories. I feel like it's just like a breeze to read through, even though this book is like 600 pages long. It's definitely like an interesting read, and it blows my mind the insane amount of drug use and like super hardcore drug use that is just casually spoken about. That definitely I will never think of the Strokes in the same way again after reading like the party animal aspects of this book that I totally cannot relate to, like the casual, like speaking of like using heroin, like just to like have a good time. But definitely an interesting read, and the Strokes are like a super cool band. We just posted a cover with Allie that I think turned out really well, and I've got another Strokes song coming up with Jada that we were able to record before she left, so stay on the lookout for that. So since we're talking about the Strokes, I want to link you to probably what is my favorite Strokes song, Reptilia, which I haven't looked into why it's called that because it seems kind of strange, but definitely a really cool song, some cool guitar playing, and check that out. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, the website, and I will talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot.